this episode, we're going to focus on one of the most underestimated parts of ransomware response: communication. Beginners often assume ransomware response is mostly technical, like isolating machines and restoring backups, and communication is something you do after the engineers are done. In reality, ransomware is designed to create urgency, fear, and uncertainty, and those emotions spread through conversations faster than malware spreads through networks. Attackers exploit that human chaos by pressuring leaders, confusing employees, and forcing decisions under deadlines. Handling communications well is not about sounding polished. It is about keeping decision-making stable, protecting evidence, and reducing the attacker's leverage. We are going to cover 3 communication lanes that must be managed at the same time: communication to stakeholders inside the organization, communication with attackers if it occurs, and communication that involves legal coordination. The key theme is consistency and control, because uncontrolled messaging is itself a vulnerability during ransomware incidents. Stakeholder communication starts with a simple reality. Different groups need different information, and giving everyone the same message can be either too vague to be useful or too technical to be understood. Executives and business leaders need a clear summary of what is happening, what is impacted, and what decisions are coming, especially around downtime, customer impact, and resource allocation. Operational teams need practical instructions, like what systems are unavailable, what to avoid doing, and where to report anomalies, because their actions can affect containment and recovery. Security and IT teams need detailed coordination messages that align containment steps, restoration plans, and investigation tasks, so they do not work at cross purposes. Frontline managers need guidance on what to tell their teams so rumors do not multiply, because rumors can cause harmful behavior like people plugging in personal devices or trying unsafe workarounds. Good stakeholder communication is therefore tiered, meaning tailored to audience and role, while still consistent in core facts. The goal is not to share everything. It is to share the right information to keep people aligned and calm. A strong stakeholder message usually includes 3 categories: known facts, current actions, and next checkpoints. Known facts might include that ransomware activity was detected, that certain systems are impacted, and that containment is underway, without guessing at root cause or attacker identity. Current actions might include that affected systems are being isolated, backups are being evaluated, and identity controls are being reviewed, again without diving into unnecessary detail. Next checkpoints might include when the next update will happen, what decisions leaders may need to make, and what employees should do in the meantime. This structure matters because it replaces rumor-driven updates with scheduled, predictable updates, which reduces anxiety. It also helps prevent the common failure mode of overpromising, like saying everything will be back in an hour, which damages trust if it turns out to be wrong. In ransomware incidents, trust is a limited resource, and communication is how you spend or preserve it. A calm, structured update cadence is often more valuable than frequent fragmented messages. Another important stakeholder issue is safe communication channels, because ransomware incidents can disrupt normal tools and can create the risk that compromised channels are being monitored. If email and collaboration platforms are affected or suspected to be compromised, you need an alternative way to communicate that is not dependent on the impacted environment. Even when communication tools are still working, you should assume attackers may have had access to internal messages earlier in the intrusion, which means you should avoid sharing sensitive details that could help them. This includes not broadcasting specific containment steps that the attacker could use to adapt, such as exactly which networks are being segmented at what times. The practical goal is to maintain coordination without handing the attacker a play-by-play of your defense. This is not about secrecy for its own sake. It is about keeping your response effective. Stakeholder communication should therefore be both informative and operationally cautious, balancing transparency with security. Now let's turn to communication involving attackers, because ransomware is one of the few incident types where direct communication is sometimes part of the situation. The key beginner idea is that attacker communication is a controlled process, not an emotional conversation and not a technical support channel. If communication occurs, it should be limited to designated individuals and should be documented carefully. Attackers often provide a contact method, a ransom note, and a deadline, and they may attempt to intimidate or manipulate responders by claiming they have stolen data or by threatening rapid escalation. The attacker's goal is to force quick decisions and to create the perception that paying is the only option. A disciplined organization treats attacker claims as unverified until proven, even when the claims sound plausible. The organization also avoids sending sensitive information to the attacker, such as internal details, because anything you reveal can be used against you. The purpose of any contact, if it happens, is to gather information that helps decision-making, not to argue or to seek sympathy. A key point about attacker communication is that it can create risks beyond the immediate incident, including legal and reputational risks. Attackers may request payment through channels that could be illegal depending on who the attacker is and what laws apply. Attackers may also attempt to trick responders into running malware by offering a decryption test file that is actually dangerous. They may ask for proof of identity or internal details to demonstrate legitimacy, but those requests can become intelligence gathering for them. This is why attacker communications must be coordinated with legal and with experienced incident leadership, because the wrong message can create complications. Even if payment is not being considered, attackers may try to negotiate and to keep the conversation going to maintain psychological pressure. A strong responder understands that the attacker's words are part of the weapon. The defensive posture is to stay factual, minimize information shared, and keep communications aligned with the organization's strategy. Legal coordination is the third lane, and it is critical because ransomware can trigger obligations that go far beyond IT recovery. Legal teams help determine reporting obligations, contractual responsibilities, and how communications are worded to reduce unnecessary liability while still being truthful. Legal coordination also helps manage evidence preservation, because the organization may need to demonstrate what actions were taken and when. In many incidents, legal teams coordinate with outside counsel and with incident response specialists, and they can help decide when and how to involve law enforcement. A common beginner mistake is to treat legal involvement as something you do at the end, but in ransomware incidents, legal guidance is valuable early, especially if data theft is suspected. Legal also helps decide how to communicate with customers and partners, because those messages need to be consistent and accurate while avoiding speculation. The legal lane is not there to slow the response. It is there to help the organization make defensible decisions under pressure. When legal is integrated early, the response often becomes smoother rather than harder. Another aspect of legal coordination is deciding what to say and what not to say while facts are still emerging. Ransomware incidents often evolve quickly, and early statements can later be proven wrong as new evidence arrives. If you tell a customer that no data was accessed and later discover data theft, you lose credibility and create legal risk. If you tell stakeholders that operations will be restored by a certain time and it takes longer, you create panic and mistrust. Legal teams often encourage careful wording that distinguishes known facts from ongoing investigation, and that can feel frustrating to technical responders who want to be direct. The key is to understand why that caution exists. It is to protect the organization from compounding the incident with misinformation. Cautious communication is not the same as hiding. It is the discipline of not claiming certainty you do not have. In ransomware response, discipline language is a practical defense tool. Communication also affects recovery choices because stakeholders must understand the trade-offs being made. For example, rebuilding systems can take longer than restoring from backups, but it can produce higher confidence that hidden compromise is removed. If business leaders do not understand that trade-off, they may push for speed without recognizing the reinfection risk. Similarly, isolating parts of the network can protect other systems, but it may disrupt operations, and people need to know why the disruption is necessary. If employees do not understand, they may try to bypass isolation by using personal hotspots, sharing files through personal accounts, or taking other actions that increase risk. Clear, simple explanations reduce those unsafe behaviors. Communication is therefore not just reporting, it is guiding behavior. The best stakeholder messages reduce risky improvisation by giving people a safe plan and a sense of progress. It is also important to coordinate communications across internal and external stakeholders so messages do not conflict. Procurement teams may be talking to vendors, customer support teams may be talking to customers, executives may be talking to boards, and technical teams may be talking to internal users. If each group invents its own story, the organization will create contradictions that damage trust. A disciplined response creates a central message owner and a shared set of approved talking points that can be adapted to audience without changing core facts. This does not require rigid scripts, but it does require alignment on what is known, what is uncertain, and what actions are underway. It also requires a plan for updates, because as new facts emerge, the message must evolve smoothly rather than lurching. The attacker's goal is to create fragmentation. Your goal is to maintain coherence. Coherence is what makes leadership decisions stable and makes recovery coordination possible. As we close, remember that ransomware communication is part of containment and recovery, not a side activity. Stakeholder communication keeps people aligned, reduces rumor-driven behavior, and supports disciplined decision-making by providing clear facts, current actions, and next checkpoints through safe channels. Attacker communication, if it occurs, must be controlled, documented, and coordinated, because attackers use conversation as a pressure weapon and because the wrong message can create additional risk. Legal coordination helps ensure obligations are met, evidence is preserved, and external communications remain truthful and defensible while facts are still emerging. When these three lanes are handled well, the organization is less likely to panic, less likely to make impulsive decisions, and more likely to recover with trust intact. Ransomware tries to turn technical disruption into organizational chaos, and disciplined communication is one of the strongest ways to prevent that conversion.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.